There is a sorrow that visits many in their later years, the sorrow of being left behind, of seeing friends drift away, of watching family members grow distant, of sitting alone in the silence that once was filled with laughter and companionship. It is a bitter season when one looks around and finds only shadows of the past, yet no hands to hold in the present. But let it be known, such an ending is not inevitable. The seeds a man sows in his youth shall bring forth fruit in his old age. The question is, what have you sown? There is nothing more repelling to the human soul than the presence of bitterness. A man who has allowed the wounds of life to fester into resentment becomes like a fountain that once poured fresh water, but now drips only with poison. His words are sharp, his heart is heavy, and his conversation is filled with complaints. He speaks not of hope, nor of joy, nor of the lessons learned through hardship, but only of the betrayals he endured, the dreams that were stolen, and the injustices he believes were done to him. Such a man wonders why people leave his presence, yet he does not see that his very demeanor drives them away. No one desires to sit under the shadow of perpetual negativity. People are drawn to warmth, to encouragement, to words that uplift rather than drag the soul into despair. But the bitter man does not realize that his constant lamentations create a barrier between himself and others. When family visits, he does not embrace them with gratitude, but greets them with complaints about how they do not come often enough, about how the world is not what it used to be, about how everything is wrong and nothing is as it should be. At first they endure it out of obligation, but over time they find reasons to stay away, to visit less, until eventually they do not come at all. This bitterness does not arrive overnight. It begins as a small grievance, an unresolved hurt, a disappointment that was never laid to rest. Instead of healing, the heart clings to its wounds, revisiting them again and again until they become the defining story of one's life. The past becomes an iron chain, dragging the soul down, and soon the man is unable to see anything but his own suffering. He resents those who seem happy, scoffs at the joys of others, and convinces himself that life has been unfair to him alone. He does not know that in nurturing this bitterness, he has become a stranger even to those who once loved him. But let the bitter man take heed. This is not the only path. He is not doomed to isolation, if he will only release the burden he carries. He must learn to let go of grievances, to forgive even when forgiveness feels undeserved, and to speak with gratitude instead of complaint. Let him remember that his presence should be a blessing, not a weight upon others. If he desires company in his old age, let his words be filled with encouragement, let his heart be open to the joys of others, and let his presence be one of peace rather than sorrow. For those who recognize the seeds of bitterness within themselves, now is the time to uproot them before they bear fruit. Make it a habit to speak of what is good, to remember what is lovely, to find reason for thanksgiving even in difficulty. When you speak, let your words be like fresh air to those who hear, not a suffocating cloud of regret. Then, and only then, will people desire your company, not out of obligation, but out of the simple joy of being near a heart that has learned to heal. A man does not wake up in his old age to find himself alone by accident. Loneliness is often the bitter harvest of seeds sown in years long past. If a life was lived in pursuit of selfish ambition, if the heart was closed to friendships, if time was always given to work and never to people, then the later years will reveal the emptiness left behind. Relationships do not grow by themselves. They require tending, like a garden that must be watered, pruned, and cared for. Many realize too late that they spent their youth neglecting the very people who would have been their greatest source of comfort in old age. It is easy to prioritize personal success over relationships. Many devote their best years to building careers, accumulating wealth, and chasing after personal achievements, all the while assuming that friendships and family bonds will always be there, waiting patiently for when they finally have time. But time is not so kind. Friendships left unattended wither like neglected vines. Family bonds weaken when years pass without effort to nurture them. A man may find himself with riches, yet no one to share a meal with a great name in the world, yet no one to call him with love. He may have achieved much, but at what cost? Some believe that relationships will simply endure without investment. They think that because they were once close to someone, that closeness will last forever, but every bond, no matter how strong, must be maintained. The friend who was never called, the family member who was always put second, the loved ones who were taken for granted, they remember. And as time passes, they too learn to move on. Love grows cold when it is not nurtured. When old age arrives, the man who neglected others will sit in silence, wondering why no one visits, why no one calls, why no one seems to care. But the truth is, he was the one who first stopped caring. Relationships are not built in a day, nor are they destroyed in a moment. They are the product of years of choices, small acts of kindness, consistent effort, and a willingness to give without expecting return. If a man spent his youth being too busy for others, he should not be surprised when others are too busy for him in his later years. If he never made time for his children, why should they now rearrange their lives for him? If he ignored his friends, why should they now seek his company? The years reveal what we have sown. But let this be a warning, not a sentence. It is never too late to change. The past cannot be rewritten, but the future can still be shaped. If one finds themselves growing older and realizing their relationships are weak, now is the time to mend what has been broken. Call the old friend, write to the distant family member. Show up for those who were once neglected. True relationships are built on sincerity, and even if time has passed, love has a way of rekindling where genuine effort is made. For those still in their youth, let them take heed. Invest in people, not just in things. Success will fade, possessions will be left behind, but the warmth of a loving relationship will sustain you when everything else is gone. Make time for others, cherish those who matter, and never assume that love will remain if it is not nurtured. Then, when old age comes, you will not sit in the loneliness of regret, but in the joy of a life well shared. Life is a river that never stops flowing, a constant current of change that carries us forward, whether we embrace it or resist it. But there are those who, upon reaching a certain point in life, dig their heels into the ground, refusing to move with the tide. They reject new ideas, dismiss the innovations of younger generations, and insist that the ways of the past were the only right ways. In doing so, they do not realize that they are not standing firm. They are isolating themselves. The world does not slow down for those who refuse to grow. It simply moves on without them. Nothing distances people more than an unyielding spirit. The man who believes that all wisdom was given only to his generation, who scoffs at the ways of the young, and who speaks only in criticism rather than understanding, will soon find himself surrounded by silence. The younger generations, eager to learn and contribute, will not waste time trying to convince someone who refuses to listen. Instead, they will turn elsewhere, to those who are willing to guide them with patience, who acknowledge that wisdom is not a relic of the past, but something that grows with time. Many old men and women complain that the young no longer visit, that their words are no longer heeded, that their presence is no longer desired, yet they do not ask themselves why. Were they mentors or mere judges? Did they offer wisdom with kindness, or did they only point out faults with a heart of superiority? The young do not reject the old because they are old. They reject those who make no effort to understand, who refuse to acknowledge that change is not an enemy, but a natural progression of life. The refusal to grow manifests in many ways. Some refuse to learn new skills, even when those skills would help them connect with their loved ones. They scoff at technology, dismissing it as foolishness, rather than seeing it as a bridge to communicate with their children and grandchildren. Others reject new ideas in culture, morality, or faith, not because they have carefully examined them, but because they believe anything different from their own upbringing must be wrong. This stubbornness creates walls where there should be doors, division where there should be connection. Growth is not about abandoning one's values. It is about knowing which values are eternal and which are simply preferences of an era now past. A wise man does not insist that every custom of his youth must remain unchanged, but rather discerns what is truly worth preserving. He does not demand that the world revolve around his understanding, but seeks to understand the world as it is now. He does not mock the young for their new ways, but teaches them how to walk in wisdom without crushing their spirit. In doing so, he does not lose his relevance. He increases it. But those who resist change at all costs will find themselves left behind. Conversations will pass them by. Opportunities for connection will disappear, and before they know it they will be alone, not because people do not love them, but because they have made themselves difficult to love. If no one can speak to you without being ridiculed, if no one can share a new idea without being dismissed, if no one feels heard in your presence, why would they return? The heart that refuses to grow becomes like hardened soil, unable to receive the seeds of new relationship. Let the one who desires companionship in their later years learn to walk with both wisdom and humility. Let them embrace the good in the new, while holding on to the best of the old. Let them listen before they judge, understand before they reject, and guide before they condemn. When they do this, they will find that the young will seek them out, not as a burden to be endured, but as a wellspring of wisdom to be cherished. For those who still have time, let them take heed. Grow while you still can. Adapt while you still have people around to help you. Do not close your heart to the world, for the moment you stop growing is the moment you start fading. And in the end, those who embraced change with grace will not find themselves alone, but surrounded by those who value both their wisdom and their presence. There are those who go through life treating relationships as mere transactions, engaging with others only when there is something to gain. They are present when the table is full, when resources are abundant, when favors are to be exchanged, but when the moment comes where no advantage can be had, they withdraw like a merchant closing shop after the day's profits have been collected. Such people believe themselves wise, calculating their friendships based on benefit, but they fail to see that a foundation built on selfishness will not stand when the storms of life arrive. A transactional relationship is one where every interaction is measured by gain. Some people only reach out when they need something, help with a task, financial support, or influence to open doors of opportunity. They keep a mental ledger of who owes them and who can serve their interests. But relationships are not bank accounts, where deposits and withdrawals can be balanced with cold precision. True bonds are formed in the soil of sincerity, not in the marketplace of selfish ambition. When one operates in this manner, people begin to notice. Friends may not say it aloud, but they feel it, the sense that they are not valued for who they are, but for what they bring to the table. They recognize that kindness is given only when a return is expected. Over time, they learn to keep their distance. They may not confront, they may not argue, but slowly they will fade away, choosing to invest their time in those who offer true companionship rather than calculated exchanges. Fate, fate, fate. Such people wonder why, in their moment of need, no one comes to their aid. They look around and find themselves alone, abandoned by those they once called friends. They fail to realize that they never truly built friendships. They merely rented them. And like any temporary arrangement, once the payment stops, the service ends. Relationships that were maintained only for gain will crumble when there is nothing left to be gained. Some even carry this transactional mindset into their own families. They give affection to their children only when they obey. They acknowledge their spouse only when their needs are met, and they visit relatives only when an inheritance or favor is at stake. They see every relationship as a means to an end, failing to cultivate the unconditional love that binds people together through all seasons of life. But family, like true friendship, cannot thrive under the weight of expectation and self-interest. Love is not a business deal, it is a covenant, a sacred bond that should not be traded for profit. And so, when old age comes, the one who built only transactional relationships finds himself in an empty house. No one visits, no one calls, no one inquires about his well-being. He may have had many connections in his prime, but none who truly cared. He may have entertained crowds at his table, but none remain when the feast is over. This is the fate of the one who treated relationships as commodities instead of treasures. But let this be a warning, not a final judgment. There is still time to change, to mend what has been broken. If a man finds himself realizing that he is only engaged in transactional relationships, let him begin anew. Let him give without expecting return. Let him reach out, not for gain, but for genuine connection. Let him learn to love without calculation, to invest in people not for what they offer, but simply because they are worth it. To those who are still building their lives, take heed. Do not measure relationships by utility. Do not keep friends merely because they benefit you, nor discard them when they cannot. Do not love with conditions, nor offer kindness with a price tag. Instead, cultivate relationships with sincerity, with generosity, with an open heart that does not seek repayment. For in the end, the relationships that last are the ones that were never about gain. The ones who will stand by you in hardship, who will visit you in your final years, who will hold your hand when your strength fades, these are the ones who were loved unconditionally. And if you would have such people in your life, you must first become such a person yourself. Let go of selfish motives, and you will find friendships that endure. Release the mindset of transaction, and you will gain something far greater. A love that does not fade, a companionship that does not break, and a legacy that is not measured in wealth, but in the hearts you have touched along the way. Life is a series of connections, and every person is like a well, either full of refreshing water or dry and barren. Those who pour encouragement, wisdom, and kindness into the lives of others find themselves surrounded by friends and loved ones, even in old age. But those who offer nothing, no joy, no warmth, no support, soon find that people no longer seek their presence. If a person becomes lifeless in spirit, offering neither upliftment nor companionship, others will gradually drift away, not out of cruelty, but because the heart longs for light, not shadows. Many people wonder why their circle grows smaller as they age. They assume that others are simply neglectful, that younger generations no longer care, or that friendships naturally fade. But often the truth is more uncomfortable. They have ceased to be a source of joy, wisdom, or inspiration. Instead of speaking words that encourage, they complain. Instead of offering kindness, they criticize. Instead of being a source of light, they become a weight of sorrow, dragging down every conversation with negativity. Who desires to remain in such company? The mistake many make is believing that their presence alone should be enough. They assume that because people once enjoyed their company, they always will. But relationships must be nurtured, and companionship is never a right. It is a privilege, earned by being someone worth spending time with. If a person once shared laughter, wisdom, and encouragement, but now speaks only of misfortunes and complaints, should they be surprised when others hesitate to visit? Joy is not merely laughter or entertainment. It is the ability to bring light into a room, to make others feel understood, appreciated, and valued. Some bring joy by telling great stories, others by listening well. Some uplift through wise counsel, others by simply being a comforting presence. But if a person brings nothing, if they offer only silence, complaints, or bitter memories, then they should not be shocked when their presence is no longer sought after. There is also the matter of adding value. This does not mean monetary value, nor does it require grand acts of service. Adding value can be as simple as being a good listener, offering a kind word, or sharing an insightful thought. Those who add value to others are never forgotten, for people remember how they made them feel. But those who offer nothing but burdens, who seek attention without giving warmth, who demand without contributing, soon become an obligation rather than a joy to be around. Friendships and family bonds require reciprocity. No one wishes to be around someone who only takes and never gives. It is not that people expect perfection, but they long for companionship that enriches rather than drains. If every conversation is filled with sorrow, if every gathering is turned into a session of complaints, then it is natural that people will distance themselves, not because they lack compassion, but because the human soul was not made to dwell in perpetual gloom. Some may argue, "But I am suffering, must I pretend to be joyful?" No, one does not need to hide their struggles. Life is difficult, and it is natural to share burdens with trusted companions. But even in suffering, there is a way to carry oneself. Some, even in their trials, remain uplifting. They share wisdom from their pain, they express gratitude in difficulty, and they seek to encourage even when they themselves need encouragement. Such people never lack companionship, for their spirit, though burdened, is still a light to others. On the other hand, those who wallow endlessly in misery, who refuse to seek growth or healing, who turn every conversation into a lamentation, these individuals drive people away, not because they are unloved, but because they have made themselves hard to love. No one wishes to drown in another's sorrow indefinitely, especially when that sorrow is accompanied by no effort to improve, no desire to heal, no willingness to see hope. If one desires companionship in old age, let them resolve to be a source of joy and value to those around them. Let them speak words of encouragement, share wisdom when needed, and express gratitude rather than bitterness. Let them find ways to bring light into conversations rather than darkness. A single kind word, a thoughtful question, a moment of laughter, these are the things that make a person desirable company, even when they grow old. It is never too late to change. If one realizes that they have become a source of heaviness rather than warmth, they can begin anew. Start by expressing gratitude, by showing interest in others rather than speaking only of personal struggles. Learn to listen, to share wisely, and to contribute to the happiness of those around you. Friendships are built not on demands, but on shared joy and mutual respect. Those who carry themselves with a spirit of lightness, who seek to enrich others rather than merely be served, will find that their company is always in demand. They will not have to beg for visitors or wonder why others do not call, for they will be the kind of person people seek out, the kind of presence that is missed when absent. Let every man and woman take heed. Become someone worth knowing, worth visiting, worth remembering. Offer value, and you will never lack companionship. Bring joy, and you will never be forgotten. Love is not a debt to be collected, nor is it a prize to be earned through obligation. It is a gift, a river that flows most abundantly when given without restraint. Yet there are those who demand love but do not offer it, who expect unwavering loyalty but give little in return, who crave affection but withhold their own. Such people in their blindness believe that others are ungrateful for leaving them, but they fail to see that love, when treated as a demand rather than a gift, loses its warmth and beauty. Many wonder why, in their later years, the people they once called friends have grown distant, and the family they expected to care for them now hesitates to visit. They say, "Where is the love I deserve? Where is the loyalty I am owed?" But love is not a matter of deserving. It is a reflection of what has been given. If a man spent his years being cold, unkind, and selfish, should he be surprised when others do not rush to embrace him? If a woman only sought love when it benefited her, should she expect it to remain when she no longer holds power or influence? Love cannot be hoarded like wealth in a vault, unlocked only when one sees fit. It must be given freely, generously, without condition. Those who wait until their time of need to demand love will find themselves disappointed, for love that is given under duress is not love at all, it is duty, and duty alone does not sustain the soul. A parent who neglected their children and now expects their care will find only reluctant hands. A friend who never offered a listening ear should not wonder why no one listens to them. There is a difference between being loved and being endured. Some do not realize that their presence is no longer sought, but merely tolerated. They are visited out of obligation, spoken to out of duty, and remembered only when necessary. This is the fate of those who expected love without ever being a source of it. Love must be cultivated, nurtured, and poured into others long before it is needed. The one who gives love freely, without counting the cost, will find it return to them in abundance when they need it most. A common mistake is believing that status, family ties, or past deeds entitle one to love. A parent may say, "I raised you, now you must care for me." A friend may say, "I was once there for you, now you owe me your loyalty." But love is not a ledger where one tallies favors to be repaid. It is not earned by duty, but by sincerity. A person who showed love only when convenient should not expect it to appear when inconvenient. A lifetime of selfishness cannot be undone by a single cry for companionship. One of the clearest signs of love is sacrifice. Willing, joyful sacrifice, not one given begrudgingly. Did you put others before yourself? Did you offer a helping hand without being asked? Did you choose to be kind when no one was watching? These are the acts that build true bonds. Those who practiced them will find themselves surrounded by love even in their old age. But those who lived only for themselves, who sought only their own gain, will find that love has no reason to remain where it was never welcomed. It is easy to assume that people are ungrateful, that the world has become cold, that loyalty has faded. But before one places blame, they must look inward. Were they a source of love, or merely a collector of it? Did they demand affection but refuse to express it? Did they criticize freely but rarely offer encouragement? Did they seek to be served but never to serve? The answers to these questions will reveal why people stay or why they leave. Love that is conditional, manipulative, or self-serving never lasts. It may hold people for a time, but the moment they find freedom, they will flee. Some use love as a weapon, saying, "If you loved me, you would do this for me." Others hold affection hostage, giving it only when they receive what they desire. But real love does not seek control, it seeks to give. Those who loved with open hands will find that others return to them willingly, not out of duty, but out of genuine affection. There is a great difference between being needed and being wanted. Some parents believe their children will always need them, but as years pass they discover that need fades. What remains is whether they are wanted. Some friends assume that shared history will keep bonds strong, yet time reveals that only those who nurtured love are remembered. The ones who invested in relationships, who made themselves a source of joy, wisdom, and comfort, will be sought after. But those who expected love without giving it will be quietly left behind. This truth applies to all relationships: marriage, friendship, family, and even communities. If a husband expects his wife's devotion but never showed her tenderness, he will one day find her love cold. If a friend expects unwavering support but was never supportive, they will wake up one day and find themselves alone. If a grandparent expects visits but never built bonds with their grandchildren, they will stare at an empty doorway, wondering why no one comes. Love is not a guarantee. It is a fruit that grows only when planted and watered with care. Yet this is not a hopeless message, for it is never too late to change. Love can still be given even now. No matter the past, a person can begin to love freely, without expectation of return. They can offer kindness, listen instead of demand, serve rather than expect, and in doing so they may find that love begins to return. Not instantly, but in time. The heart that was once closed can be opened, and where bitterness once stood, warmth can take its place. To those who fear loneliness, let this be your answer: love first. Give without expecting. Pour out affection, even if it is not immediately returned. Be the person that others long to be around, not because they must, but because they truly desire to. Do not count what you have given. Do not keep score, for love that is freely given will always find its way back. And in the final days of life, when strength fades and the body weakens, it will not be riches or power that bring comfort. It will be love, the love that was given, the love that was nurtured, and the love that remains. Those who loved well will not find themselves abandoned, for love, once planted deeply, does not wither. But those who demanded what they never gave will find only silence. For love cannot be forced, it can only be freely received, when it has been freely given. Let every person take heed. Expect not love, but give it first. Demand not affection, but sow it willingly. And when the time comes, love will return, not as a duty, but as a gift, given back to the one who first gave it away.